On the Facebook is about W sitting. Is W sitting always something to be concerned about, or can it just be the way they sit because they've seen other people, older brother, sit that way? And we should probably clarify what W sitting is for people who, we've all seen kids who do this, that they sit and their legs are in the shape of a W. So their knees are rotated out, their feet are out to the side and often flexed when they're sitting that way. So if you looked at them from above, it looks like they're a W sitting on the floor. That's what we're talking about. So
I don't, I think this isn't really my area of expertise, but I did tear a ligament in my knee twice and was told that it's not a good idea to sit that way because it stretches out that ligament or it damages that ligament. So that's really all I know about it. And so I don't really recommend that. If you can, just teach your child to sit in a different way.
Yeah, there are a lot of articles and studies, and I was saying to Dr. Granpeesheh that I got involved in something on Facebook a couple of weeks ago that there are a bunch of things that suggest that it's really critical that people not allow children to sit this way, partially because it's bad for the knees, but partially because it's not a good learning stance, and that it could be a symptom of other things. I don't know if all of that is true, but if we just look at it as it's really bad for your knees.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, that is the ligament that tends to be damaged easily later on. So I don't think that it's a good idea to allow our kids to sit that way.
And I have seen people in the school setting, if a child sits that way, it's pretty across the board now in schools that they will ask them to sit a different way.
Oh, okay.
It's better for their core if they sit what they call crisscross applesauce. We used to say Indian style, and that is not politically correct, so we say crisscross applesauce now, which is fun, and the kids all get it. But that's a way that encourages their growth for their core. It's better for their back, and it's better for their knees.
Right.
So I think if we all focus on that and not get into all the emotional about, what is it, what else is it?
Oh, and it's entirely possible, obviously, that it doesn't damage everyone, but also sitting a certain way can damage some people and not others. So we just want to practice, maintain best practice, I guess.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, next question. How early should parents request an early intervention evaluation for newborn siblings of autistic children? Great question.
That's a fabulous question. We wrote a chapter, Dennis Dixon and I, a while ago about early signs. So I would really recommend that you actually try to find some literature on early signs because there are some. For instance, there are some red flags. For instance, some delays in motor abilities, which people wouldn't necessarily think that could be one of the red flags, but it's a pretty constant red flag is some motor delays. And some, of course, attention types of things, eye contact and so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that you as a parent will be able to identify red flags sooner than you'll get anyone to do any kind of diagnostic evaluation. From my perspective, as someone who's been diagnosing for a long time, I think if I was to see a child below the age of 2, let's say about 18 months or so, unless the symptoms were pretty clear, like in other words, unless it was, I guess what I'm saying is the earliest I could ever really feel confident in a diagnosis is about 18 months, and that's only if it's a pretty severe situation.
Okay.
Most of the time I find, and I don't know why this is, but I find that second and third children tend to be slightly less impacted by autism, so their symptoms tend to be less than the first sibling. That's actually a good study to do. I'm not sure why, that's just my perception. But what I would suggest is that you should probably read some literature, look for signs yourself, make sure that you get a decent evaluation from someone who's had a lot of experience at around 18 months to 2 years. And what I do if I'm not certain at 18 months is I request this every 6 months for the child to come back so I can track. And make sure that I can catch any symptom that develops early on. Most, let's say, physicians or psychologists who are diagnosing won't really feel comfortable giving you a diagnosis until you're closer to 3, which is somewhat problematic in my mind because I think you can pretty clearly diagnose at 2. But, you know, if you want to catch it before 2, then I would start at around 18 months. Taking a child in at 1 it's difficult. It's not enough. Development has not occurred yet.
Okay.
But if you track symptoms, things like no eye contact or lack of eye contact, any kind of repetitive motor mannerisms like hand flapping, even specific delays in motor like sitting up and certain motor delays. Development of language, obviously, at 1 is the one that usually triggers concern in parents. Any kind of, you know, detachment is, I think, what parents notice first. Mm-hmm. Those types of things, then I would probably want to go in around 18 months and get a good eval.
This is a follow-up from a mom who was talking last week about how does she prepare. She's going to have a meeting with you. Mm-hmm. And she writes, "Hi, Dr. Doreen. As a card client, I thought we had the perk to get to meet with you at one point and get an insight to your beautiful brain." I'm with her mm-hmm. on this. "I finally got an appointment, but they informed me that the insurance doesn't cover your visit. It has to be full payment. Since my 2 sons are card family, how come we don't get that benefit of seeing you without the high payment? I thought you tried to review every case." And they wrote, "Please don't be mad, but it's just a question." And obviously cute. You can see nobody's mad.
No, not at all.
But let's have clarification so that she understands exactly what's going on.
Well, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm guessing what's going on is that my rates, what I charge is usually higher than what we bill for a supervisor's hours. Uh-huh. So what I'm guessing is that someone, and I'm not sure who told you this, either told you they won't pay, the insurance won't cover my rates, or they told you there's just not enough hours. I'm not quite sure, but this is what you do now. You go back and you tell whoever told you, your supervisor, the operations manager at your location, or admissions, I'm not sure who you talked with. I accept, for my clients, for card clients, I accept what they pay for a supervisor. And I don't care what that is. In some cases, it could be $40, to be honest with you. I really don't care. I'm delighted to see card clients. I really want to see you because I want to make sure your child does well. And my favorite part of my job, my whole life, is just seeing kids. So what happens though is if I see you, it takes away from your current hours. So let's assume you have, I don't know, 8 hours of supervision in the given month. Mm-hmm. Then I'll probably be using 2 of those or something, and so you'll miss a clinic or you'll miss something else that we were authorized to bill for. Mm-hmm. So that's all.
So it becomes a choice for you as the parent about how you want to spend your hours. Right. But you can, and I loved my clinics and loved my supervisor, but if I had the opportunity to have you consult on the case, I would feel comfortable in shifting those hours for a month. I'd be delighted to have done it. But it's your choice.
Right, and some insurance companies prevent us from doing things like this. For instance, military insurance won't allow any kind of overlap. So if I see your child, I have to see you and your child alone. I can't see your team. I can't see your supervisor. It's just garbage nonsense that insurance companies impose on us. Mm-hmm. There's other types of millions. I won't go into how many restrictions insurance companies place on us. However, if you're like a typical company rather than military, or I'm trying to think about like regional centers also don't allow overlaps. But if you're a typical insurance company coverage, then I could also try to schedule to have your supervisor there mm-hmm. at our meeting. Sometimes I can even have the team there. So in a 2-hour span, we can also do sort of a mini clinic as well as everything else I want to review. I tend to go off structure. I don't really run through every lesson. I want to use my time efficiently and answer all your questions and tell you a little bit about what I see as the future and what you need to focus on right now and how your child's doing and all of that. And I have to kind of get that done in a 2-hour span. So we won't get through every program just like we do at clinics, but hey, I'd love to see you. I see so many card kids.
Okay, so hopefully that makes a little bit more sense for
but
you.
But it is a little tough to get on my schedule, so I would really, give me about 3 months from the time you attend, 3 to 4 months.
But I think she had the appointment already. From last week, she was talking about that she had the appointment already, but then it just became a question of how was it being paid for.
And the problem is that if you had the appointment and it got canceled, it might not be able to keep it. And Shannon, I work.
She's very busy.
Ridiculous
her hours are very full. She's working very, very hard. But let's be in touch with us.
Yes, please do.
No one is ever mad when anybody asks a question. That's what this format and forum is for. Okay, we've got so many questions and more coming in even as I'm reading. So I'm going to start picking and choosing here. Hi, Dr. Doreen. What can cause night sweats? My son is on a very strict diet, biomedical intervention, full-time therapy. He's 3 years, 10 months. Sleeps great, but when I try to fix him in his bed while sleeping, his pillow is so wet. I'm wondering if there's a medical concern I should seek out. And she said, thanks, ladies. Love you. We love you, too.
Yes, I mean, if it's normal conditions and you really feel like he is over sweating more than is typical, then yeah, it could be a metabolic problem. It could be a hormonal problem. I think you should definitely have him checked out. And I don't know where you are.
I don't know.
We have a physician on staff, as you know, and if you're a card family or near one of our our card physician resides in Sacramento, but she tours and basically goes to all of our locations. There are other physicians. You can look up on the MAPS physicians and see who's in your area. But I do recommend that actually your pediatrician should be able to help with this because they really just want to do a metabolic panel to begin with.
Yeah. And if you're doing the full biomedical, you may also want to sign up to get a TACA mentor. They can help you to connect with all those people, the MAPS people as well.
If you're doing a full biomedical, then I guess you probably have a physician.
Yeah, probably do.
Yeah.
But sometimes I think having the TACA mentor to help with the biomedical can be a really helpful thing. It's a parent who's been there, done that biomedically, which is wonderful. Okay, we've got a bunch of questions about anxiety, and I actually think that they're coming from different people. But hi, my 4.5-year-old son has a lot of problems with anxiety. I have anxiety too, so I know what the signs look like. When I take him to school, he gets nervous and does the nervous arm thing. I've observed him from a window of the classroom outside in the playground and see him so nervous and scared outside by himself. He is in a regular preschool. His speech is very delayed as well. He doesn't have a shadow, but he had his speech therapist go into class 3 days a week for 4 hours. Then continuing on, what kind of things can I do at my home for ABA? The insurance doesn't cover them at school. We have Medicaid in Florida, CMS. Or should I see a psychologist for him or a cognitive behavioral therapist? And they said, thank you for the show. Thank you for writing in.
Thank you for writing in, and what a great question.
Yeah. So
I guess I'm trying to put all of my answers together for this because this is really important. So as behaviorists, when you see a behaviorist, and I think you have access to a behaviorist, if I'm not correct. Yeah, you do, but not in school. Okay. So as a behaviorists will generally come to you and say, well, he does this type of behavior and perhaps it's getting attention at school that's what's maintaining it. So there's a behavioral perspective that this type of behavior, is maybe it's to some extent avoiding certain activities. Like, in other words, the behaviorist might say to you, okay, well, when he enters school, it's a high demand environment. It's an environment that's not very pleasant to him, so he does maybe hand flapping or whatever it is. And then what he gets as a result is your attention. You're trying to calm him. You're trying to give him a lot of love or whatever. Or other people in school might be trying to just tell him, don't do that. Whatever it is, it's maintained by an attention function. As a psychologist, so a psychologist would tell you, no, it's probably anxiety, and when he has anxiety, he will do these types of behaviors because he's trying to control his environment, which is what we do when we have anxiety, and that's what's actually leading to this behavior. So you'll have a little bit of a confusing message there. Now, what I'm going to tell you is it's both. So basically, you have anxiety to begin with. You generally most of the time, behaviors that we begin on our own, any of us, not just kids on the spectrum, but all of us, are it's some sort of an internal function, like some sort of a feeling or something that actually initiates it or evokes it, and then it's maintained by some external factor. So I always used to give examples using kids who become extremely picky in what they eat. I don't think that starts out as something that's just attention seeking. I think that kids become very picky because certain foods disturb them. Certain foods are hard to digest. Certain foods make them feel bad afterwards, make them feel bloated or uncomfortable, etc. So it's an internal feeling that it's sort of an internal punisher. Let's put it that way. It's some internal thing evokes it, and then the child avoids that, and then it becomes learned, because then the learned behavior broadens. So like a child might feel bad on one type of food, but then it'll generalize to everything that looks that way. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with anxiety, and I think, so that's kind of you have to understand the cause of things in order to be able to deal with how to treat them. So the way to treat it is really good, actually, because the fantastic thing about fear and anxiety is that it is the intervention for it is a behavioral intervention. So you're not going to have a conflict in terms of how to deal with this. Now, the behavioral intervention that you want to choose is what's called systematic desensitization. So what you'll do is you will start gradually. First of all, you'll teach your child, and this could be you, and you're doing this at home, it could be you or your behaviorist, or it's pretty easy. And you can look up systematic desensitization. It's a pretty basic process. We might even have I don't know if we have a module on it at IBT. I'm not sure, but it's an easy process. I'll tell you the process right now. It has 3 stages. The first stage is that you identify a series of steps to the fear-evoking thing. So, for instance, you will have the fear-evoking thing itself is getting to school, actually arriving at school, I think, outside the playground.
Being outside, I think, I don't know whether it's in the beginning or throughout the day.
But being in school is the most anxiety-provoking. So now you go back in time and you'll do, let's say, maybe seeing a picture of school. That would probably be less than seeing a video. Seeing a video would be more real life. Mm-hmm. And then before that would be maybe seeing a picture, and then before that would be maybe, I don't know, hearing about school or whatever it is. So you produce a series of fear-evoking stimuli that are associated to this particular situation, and you put them in the hierarchy in order of most fear-evoking all the way down to the least fear-evoking. And so now that's phase 1, and you've completed phase 1. Phase 2 is you work with your child and you teach them some sort of relaxation technique. So that could be, depending on the level of your child, and so the child's only 4.5, so I wouldn't get too deep into meditation. I would do something like breathing. Mm-hmm. Breathing and counting is a good one. You could teach your child other things too, like, I don't know, sometimes I teach my kids to just put on headphones and listen to music, mm-hmm. So that's like kind of something that will calm them a lot. Other things could be, things that interact with or prevent the child from getting too anxious, like an activity the child likes, like drawing, coloring, I don't know, any other thing that really is a soothing, calming, an object that could be soothing, calming, like a stuffed animal. School, that's probably not the best choice, but you find something else that has the reverse effect of fear. Maybe a picture of you that the child can take a look at. Maybe it's a scent. Maybe it's a location in the school that is the least fear-evoking, whatever it is. And you train your child, you teach your child to go to that to use that calming stimulus. And then the third phase of systematic desensitization is to pair the two. So you will start from the lowest fear-evoking, number one, which is the, maybe the picture or whatever of school, and you will put that in front of the child, and then you will have the child do whatever is that calming activity. And you do that for a week, and then the next week you'll go to level 2, the next level, and the next level, and the next level, until you get to a point where your child has a lot of exposure, and that exposure has been paired with something calming. At the same time, as you're doing this, when the child starts to show signs of anxiety at school, from a behavioral perspective, you want to make sure it's just ignored. At this point, you ignore it, and no one addresses the child hand flapping or doing nervous arm thing or whatever that is. Instead, they identify a location at the school that is the calming safe spot, maybe, or where your child has all the things they need to calm down, and they put the child on a non-contingent schedule of just going and visiting that spot, so that it's not like he actually has arm flapping and then they send him to that location. No, but he gets to spend 5 minutes every hour at that location, something like that.
I want to go to, there was a mom that we were talking to last week about her child in Arkansas, and we asked for some more information, and bless her heart, you wrote in so much. And one of the things that she said was that she was having trouble on our live feature. You get a box and you get a certain number of characters, and I know some of you, that box doesn't contain all the things that you want to say, and it can be very frustrating for you. She had it go away once or twice. So I do want to tell you, if you have something lengthy, we've asked for more information, and if you want to send us more information, you can email it directly to me. My email is s.penrod@autism-live.com. That's when you need to write a bunch of things and put them all together, send it off to me. Mm-hmm. If it's shorter, sometimes it works better in the live feature, but either way it will get to me so that I have the opportunity. So I'm going to consolidate some of the things that she said, because this is the woman who was talking about, I'm in a mess and I need a BCBA yesterday, mm-hmm. because things aren't really working out at school, mm-hmm. and that they were talking about busing her and having her be on a bus for a really long period of time. But she appreciated what you said about needing some legal help. She feels like she's got medical and legal, and that she's kind of caught in the middle between the two. Yes. And she went back to the school and asked them some questions, and what came back to her is deeply frightening to me, because she wanted to see data. Mm-hmm. She was asking to see data that they were taking on her child to know if what they're doing is effective. And what the school told her is that they can't possibly store data for the 500 children that they service in their district, so they don't take data or keep data. Mm-hmm. And she was very concerned about that. I'm deeply concerned about that. I wanted to run that in particular past you to see what your reaction is to anybody who's working with children on the autism spectrum and having that answer to where is your data.
Yeah, do we know?
Arkansas.
Arkansas, yeah, that's right.
But far enough away from Little Rock that it's a hike to get to Little Rock.
Right. Well, I mean, it's atrocious, but it is the truth. I mean, and that's very much what happens out there. But it is also ammunition for your lawyer. Yeah. So I look at it, I'm not shocked anymore. I have heard stuff like this for most of my life. But I do think that it's very important to document these things, and be aware that if you were told this, it wasn't in writing, and you might want to get it in writing. Yeah. And I really do want to make sure that you do see an attorney, because I just feel, and I'm not even sure if you do, your school has the resources, but I think once you've established that they don't have the resources, then the law protects your child in terms of being responsible for providing access to someone and funding someone who does actually have the resources. Now, having said that, if I'm not wrong, Arkansas has a mandate.
We tried to look this up last week, and I don't remember that. I don't think the map was up last week. I will look that up again in a second.
I think it does, but
But I'm with you, and I just want to interrupt for a second that one of the other things that she has said is that in the past she has been bringing a tape recorder to the IEP meeting, and the school disclosed to her that nobody likes to say anything to her because the tape recorder is there. That in and of itself is a big red flag for me.
Right.
If people are having, I always advocate that we bring tape recorders so that everybody's on our best behavior, and if they're feeling like they can't say things to you because the tape recorder is there, then that suggests to me that they know that what they're saying is inappropriate.
Exactly, absolutely. I mean, it is your right, and you should absolutely document what's being said, and everything you're saying is very common and very typical and unfortunate, which is why I really recommend that you get an attorney in place.
Yeah. And she also has said to us that she has talked to a BCBA that is about 40 minutes away from her, and she's given us the name of that BCBA, wants to know if we're familiar with her. Jennifer Nash is the name. I don't know. And there are a lot of BCBAs, so there's nothing unusual about you not knowing who that BCBA is. But if, for example, if you wanted that BCBA, because she's saying, I want card, if you wanted that BCBA to be using the skills program, you absolutely can arrange for that to happen.
Yes, you definitely can. I mean, you can... yeah,
Arkansas does have a mandate. Thank you, Kelby. Kelby's the best.
Yeah, so which is why the reason I thought that they do have a mandate is because I know that John is looking at opening in Arkansas.
Okay.
So you found a BCBA that's relatively close, not really close, but relatively close, and you probably want to give it a shot. From our perspective, we can also provide services to you. The way that we would do it through remote services is that we would hire people in your area and train them to become therapists, so frontline providers of the actual intervention, and we would give you a supervisor who would first see your child and then continue to provide supervision, some of it through FaceTime and some of it through visiting you directly there. It's a little bit more costly because it involves the travel and accommodations, but depending on your insurance, and you see, when you go to insurance, the insurance carrier is responsible for providing you services, and if they are not able to, then they have no choice but to pay for that sort of stuff. Right. So we have some arrangements with some of the carriers where they will ask us to see people in remote spots, no problem.
So it's worth looking into, and the way you would do that, the best possible way to do that is to call the 800 number, which is 855-345-CARD. So that's, again, 855-345-CARD, if you want to look into that, or if you want for the BCBA that you've had initial contact with to be using skills, so at least you've got that. You can do that as well through skillsforautism.com.
Yes.
They can be talking with her about that. But I want to remind you that at school you live in the United States. It doesn't matter which state you're in. You are entitled to free, appropriate public education. You have a very good case for saying that this is not appropriate. And if you win that case, then they will have to provide you with something that is appropriate.
Yes, yes.
But
absolutely.
It would be very easy if they're saying, as you said, get it on tape, which I think you won't be able to do. But if you say in court, can you show me all the records that you have for my child, and they're not able to produce them, they're not appropriate.
Yeah, and also, I mean, one way to document things is to send a letter or email back to the individual who told you these things and just say, this is to confirm that you told me X, Y, and Z. Yeah,
a lawyer taught me the phrase, as per our conversation yesterday when you said to me that you don't take data, and if they don't respond and say, oh, I didn't say that, then that's admissible in court.
Yeah.
So it's one of those horrible things, and I know your plate is full, but this is where you start to cross your T's and dot your I's and keep all your paperwork in order, because it makes a huge difference for you and for your child.
And one of the things this mom writes is, you're right, I do need legal counsel, but it's like going for the police while your child is in need of medical attention. And I guess the way you look at it, and I agree with you, and it's a horrible situation, but I guess the way you look at it is that if something is preventing your child from getting that medical attention, then you do go for the police first. You actually go for the lawyer, because the lawyer is what's going to open doors for the future. And I I guess back in California, when I first started practicing here, it was like in the early 90s and so on, that I was in court almost every week. I had a case in court that I was testifying for pretty much every week for a long time, and it was really exhausting, but we had to do those cases in order for families to get coverage and to set a precedence.
Yeah. And you know, and I always say this, I've had to be through it too. It's exhausting. And if you ever need somebody to hold your hand, we're here. It's the stuff that you have to do. We have the expression in our family that I'll say, oh, I'm going to have to get my dress dirty. You know, because sometimes you have to get in the mud to make it happen. And it's hard. It's really stressful, and it's hard. Make sure you have people holding your hand while you're doing it, but it's so worthwhile.
Absolutely.
I look back and and we also say, oh, we're going to have to get our Norma Ray on. Right?
Yeah.
But I look back and with great calm, knowing that we did what we had to do. And I don't beat myself up about, oh, I wished I'd done that. It's much easier to get in there and get done what you have to do, as stressful it is, than to sit around and worry, oh gosh, what did I let go of?
It's true.
So I'm going to power on because we've got all these other questions. One that just came in that I want to make sure I address. Good morning. My adult son hoards paper. His backpack weighs about 50 pounds. He picks up free magazines and newspapers outside stores. He also likes to make lists and keep them in his backpack. He has stacks of paper in his room. I think it might be a fire hazard. Please help and thanks.
Yeah, it is. Hoarding is definitely a release for anxiety. In all cases, that's what hoarding is. So it's a compulsion that goes along with a lot of anxiety. And it's basically the same kind of concept that I was talking about earlier, which is it's like a safety blanket, it's a security. So you collect things. In general, we collect things in order to reduce anxiety. So I would, you need to deal with this pretty much as any, first of all, you need to assume that he's, doesn't have a developmental disability, but it is just hoarding. You're dealing with hoarding, and you're not dealing with the ASD, you're dealing with hoarding. And with hoarding, like anything else, it is pretty difficult. It is similar to what I was talking about before in terms of you do steps. You can either flood the individual or you can do steps towards a certain situation. And this is pretty intense. So what I would start to do is I would set a limit right now, which is your baseline. In other words, you cannot take more paper in. You will, and we're looking at his room right now as the storage space, basically. You will be allowed to have what you have in there, but no more. So if you bring new paper in, you have to get rid of old paper to replace it, same exact amount, and you have to enforce that. And then you will gradually start to reduce this amount. So let's say there's, 20 piles right now. You will go to 19 piles next week or next month, and then 18 piles, and then 17 piles, and so on and so forth, so that you can then get to a size of one container, which could be a dresser, a box that he puts in the closet. So this is your behavioral manipulation of the situation, and you have to do this, and you will have objection. So please expect a reaction from him. Obviously, he'll be sort of upset and maybe, I don't know what his functioning level is, but he may get aggressive, he may have tantrums, he may get very upset. You may get depressed, whatever, all that sort of thing happens. You need to essentially block and ignore the behavior that results from it. In other words, you will not allow him to become aggressive. So if he's going to get aggressive, you will need help to make sure that he's not getting aggressive and then being allowed to keep hoarding. So you will need to be very strong about this, and you will do it gradually so that it's not too difficult for him, but it needs to be enforced. And then you will continue to do that with help and maybe assistance from other people. And you're ignoring his negative outburst of any time or of that. But at the same time, you probably want to have some redirection into some other type of activity that is a little bit more acceptable, I suppose. Here's an idea. he could, if you, depending on, do we know his age? I don't know.
She's adult.
Yeah. So you could teach him computer skills and then allow him to hoard online.
Yeah,
so in other words,
documents.
so
yeah.
scan documents online. That would be fantastic. What a great idea to buy him a scanner. And here's other things, is just producing folders, and he will bring documents into them and save them there. So this is a very good way to go about doing it. I think, what is it, the cloud? If you set up a cloud for him where he basically, it's his, and he can hoard millions and millions, and then teach him how to organize it. In fact, you're giving him very good skills, which is sort of librarian categorization, filing skills. Right. And so that would be probably a very good outlet. Typically, though, I find that people need a physical, I mean, it's not so much the act of putting things away or keeping things as it is surrounding themselves with things, clutter, because it's kind of like a wall that you're building. So the computer situation may help to some extent, but it might not reduce the need to hoard, in which case I would give him other things that can have the same kind of feeling. For instance, you could produce in the environment, in the corner of his room, a location which is relatively confining. So in other words, maybe underneath a table you can set up some pillows or cushions, and he has a blanket or something like a little playhouse or something where
Temple
he goes
Grandin
in.
took the cow squisher to college. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Sometimes they need that. He
needs an area where he feels, which is to us would be sort of confining, but to him is safe.
Yeah. They also make those shirts that that kids can wear. They make the silk undershirts, and then those to me they're compression shirts, but they're very normal and popular right now for kids to wear. They wear them in the swimming pool during the summer, that are long sleeve, and then during the winter they'll wear them underneath other clothes just to stay warm, and they're just tight fitting sort of spandexy shirts. But what we've discovered is that it has a comforting feeling for some of our kids. They put it on, and you make sure that you get one, because they come very small so that they fit a little bit tight, so you get one that's big enough but squishes them a little bit. It's comforting.
Yeah. Other things similar to that, and thanks for bringing that up, because it just made me think of someone else I want to get one of those for. But another thing that could be similarly comforting is just weighted down clothing. So anything that is has pockets, if you can, like, one of the things we teach our kids is like they can hoard things in their pockets. He might want his backpack to be heavy. So if you're going to reduce the paper, which I wouldn't do it without he should be responsible for doing that. You shouldn't do it and force him to just have an empty bag. He needs to be the one to remove it and put it in the trash, But at the same time, he might want the weight. So why don't you put some, show him how to put weights in there and teach him how to do weightlifting and stuff like that.
There you go. Making it all into something that's positive and isn't detrimental. Okay, I'm going to power on because we have so many things to talk about. Hi, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. This is from India. Again, I had earlier written to you about accessing skills, but we still, they use only paper money, not credit cards. So it's taking me some time. By this month end, I should be able to do it. I recently had my purse stolen, and it's amazing how difficult it is to be able to purchase things online when you can't, and, so I feel for you. She says, my daughter is verbal and high functioning. She's 4.5 years old, Montessori preschool for 15 hours a week, and early intervention program, which is center-based group intervention, about 12 children giving intervention by a speech therapist, occupational therapist, and a psychologist.
Can you slow down and read that again?
Yes, I'm sorry.
No, I was just trying.
So Montessori preschool,
yes,
15 hours a week.
Right. How old is the child?
4.5.
4.5 Montessori, 15 hours. Got it.
Early intervention program, which is center-based group intervention. It's 12 children.
Yes.
Given intervention by a speech therapist, occupational therapist, and a psychologist. That's 15 hours a week. So she's at 30 now total. There's nothing like the quality.
Wait, isn't that the same program?
No, those are two different things. I think, because she says 15 hours each time. So I think they're two different things. But she goes on to say, but there's nothing like a quality ABA available here, because she's in India. But I have been watching your show and the A word and tried to do whatever I can. My daughter has shown great improvements over 2 years intervention, but recently has started hitting her classmates in school. I went in to observe. Seems like it's for attention. I'm not sure. Can hitting be her way of trying to socialize with her peers? Before we get too involved, I just want to say that if you're interested in sending me a contact information, we have another mom in India who writes to us and has, for the longest time, been wanting to have another mom to be supportive back and forth in India. And if that's something that interests you, I can't give you each other's emails for anonymity's sake, but if you write to me and say, here is my email, I would like you to share this with the other mom in India, then I can do that.
Yes.
And you might enjoy that. And she is a mom who uses skills and would love to have another mom to talk to.
And I would really recommend it, because when you first start using skills, it's a little difficult, and it might be really good to have someone who's familiar.
And she's an awesome autism mom, and I see that you are as well. And the two of you together, that just makes it that much more powerful.
Yes.
And I feel for you. I love the fact that you're working it out, how to be able to pay for skills. I'm sure that skills is willing to take paper money, but the conversion rate, I'm sure that's a whole other
right. I mean, there's PayPal. I don't know if that also requires a credit card.
It does require a credit card, and of course I want to recommend IBT. But you're going to need a credit card for that as well. So in any case, the hitting, though, if you could address that, Dr. Granpeesheh, that she's recently started hitting her classmates in school. Mom has observed, looks like it's attention to her. She's not sure, but can hitting be her way of trying to socialize with peers?
Yeah, it could be her way of trying to socialize, but it's still an inappropriate way. And I think that it also is, usually it's not necessarily, I mean, it could be attention seeking for sure. A lot of times hitting is, but she's young, right?
4.5.
Yeah, so usually at 4.5, it's to gain access to something. So in other words, they could be playing with something that she wants. That could be one feature. So, or she could be trying to, gain their attention, certainly, because she feels left out. Or she could be trying to interact with them socially the way that you're saying, sure. Or she could be, trying to avoid some other thing that's going on where hitting will get her out of that. I don't know what that could be. It could be a number of different functions. It is still pretty inappropriate to hit other kids, and it'll, obviously isolate her. And if she's interested, and it also, most of the time when kids this early on hit other kids, I'm guessing she has siblings, and that she has done this in the past with her siblings, and it's been rewarding. In other words, she's hit someone else or other kids and has gained access to a toy that she wanted. So it's become a rewarded behavior. So now it's a behavior she has. So it's a challenging behavior. For that, you need the BIP builder, obviously. You need to do a functional assessment and learn exactly what the function is. It's tough, but we have all this information online, not only through skills, but also through IBT. I would say go on Amazon. Our book is out, obviously, so you could also order our book, which goes into detail about how to do these things.
Right.
But you would also need a credit card for Amazon.
The paper money thing makes it hard, and I have a new appreciation for that, having gone through what I went through. That's a really hard thing. But if there's a way that you can work it out, that a simple solution is to have a PayPal account, and then you'll have access to all of those things, but you must have someone who can load money into the PayPal account for you.
Yes.
And that becomes an issue. You can buy a prepaid credit card. That's another great suggestion that Kelby just gave us. I don't know what they have available in India, but a lot of times there are stores that will sell,
and banks,
or
maybe?
a gift card that, like Visa sells gift cards
That's
that
true.
you can buy
That's
gift cards
very
and
good
be able to
point.
do
Yeah.
something like that and be able to access it the same day, and you can take paper money. So I would hope that there is a store somewhere in India that sells something like a Visa or a MasterCard gift card. Yay, Kelby, who just said that in my ear. Okay, I'm going to move on because I'm getting nervous. I'm having anxiety about all the questions we're not getting to. But it's important that we cover these. Okay.
Well, there's one here that's a French. Well, there's a French family that's asking us, how do we teach a child math issues and so on? And that's, that's actually, and I don't know because they've written their question in French even, so I'm not sure if skills would benefit them, but there's a whole section on academics in skills which would be able to answer these things. So, I can't give an answer to how do you teach something here in 2 minutes.
But Skills can tell you, and there's a free trial on Skills that you could go in and look at that, and it makes a great deal of sense.
Yes.
So I'm going to move on to a question. Oh my gosh, I'm having trouble picking which one. And I just had one a second ago, and I threw myself off. Okay, I have a grandson who I believe is autistic.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you picked that one. Yes.
And because I promised yesterday we would get to this. He turned 2 in June of 2014. He has not spoken a word yet. When you call his name, he ignores you. His parents act like there isn't something wrong. Am I overreacting?
No, you're not overreacting. And what you have listed here is definitely something that should be evaluated. And there's no reaction, I would be concerned. And I would definitely try to get into, so at this point it would be a pediatrician first. You don't need to if there's a specialist in your area. And I wish I could help. I wish you were close by and I would try to fit your grandson in. You're going to have to go through the barrier of trying to explain to parents. Oftentimes I have parents who are just in denial of a certain situation, and the grandchild the sooner we get to this child, or sooner the child gets help, the better. And a lot of times parents are just in denial because it's too hard to accept, and or parents are very busy, and or they don't have other children to compare it to. There's a million other reasons.
It is one of the phases. I don't know a single autism parent that didn't go through the phase of denial at some point.
Of course.
It just is. But overcoming that denial, especially when you're somebody on the sidelines who cares, it can be a very delicate thing.
Absolutely.
I shared yesterday that in all likelihood somebody's going to be mad at them before this is all over. But when they start getting help for their child, that heals.
Yes. I mean, these are stages of grief you're referring to, Shannon, and good for you that you're such a concerned grandparent. I guess the only way I could help is, here's what you can do. You can go online and Google diagnostic manual criteria, the DSM-5, just put in DSM-5, the number 5, autism symptoms or autistic criteria. I don't know what it would, but as long as you put in DSM-5, it'll pop up. And you can read the exact symptoms that we're looking for. And, from a lay perspective, you can still think to yourself and determine if there are a lot of symptoms that fit in, at which point I would just show that to the parents.
There we go. We've got time. I'm going to squeeze this one little one in, but you have to be brief because I know you have to go.
Sure.
Any tips on how to not feel so overwhelmed in a loud setting? I have Asperger's, and loud settings do not go well with me.
Thank you so much for putting that in.
Yeah.
You know what? I would just recommend that you have headphones that you carry around. They're actually considered pretty cool these days, depending on how old. I would assume this is a young individual. I'm not sure, but regardless.
They're writing it in the question themselves, so I think it's got to be at least a teenager or getting to adulthood.
Or an adult, and it doesn't really matter. I would have headphones with me. I would have noise-canceling headphones with me, and I would carry those around, and I would put them on when there's loud situations going on. If you want to be able to hear, then you can have regular headphones that you can hear what's going on around you in the background, but it's not as loud. I do recommend that. Sometimes I gotta tell you, use headphones just because I can't handle noise levels around me. So I would really suggest that you do that, and I think it's actually something we all should do, because the noise can become completely toxic.
And it's overwhelming to a lot of people. I'm overwhelmed by loud noise a lot of times, especially if there's lots of different kinds of noise and my brain can't figure out what's coming from where.
Totally.
That causes anxiety in me.
Absolutely.
So know that you're not alone, and thank you for writing in and for taking care of yourself.